Didn't realize how hard it'd be to pick 10 movies. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. 2019 has come and gone, and now that I've had a chance to catch up on some of the end of the year releases, it's time for me to talk about my top 10 films of 2019. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. I really think 2019 was a great year for movies. There was a good mix this year. We had a lot of big blockbusters and sequels and franchise movies, but we also had quite a few smaller independent and foreign films too. Franchises aside, there was a lot of originality in movies this past year, which was incredibly refreshing to see. Obviously, there were some movies I wasn't a big fan of, but as a whole, I was very impressed with film in 2019. In fact, my average rating was nearly 3.5 paws this past year, which is really high for me, and I gave more 4 paw or higher ratings contemporaneously than I think I ever have in a single year. So that means that this was an incredibly hard list for me to put together. There are so many movies that I really enjoyed this past year that I wish I could put on this list, but I had to force myself to narrow it down to my top 10, plus 3 honorable mentions. I did my best to rank these, but really, I could swap these around in dozens of different combinations and never be perfectly happy with the order. So, a couple obvious disclaimers. Somewhere in the range of 800 movies come out every year, and while I do go see a lot of them, I certainly don't get a chance to see all of them. So this list is obviously going to exclude movies that I haven't had a chance to see yet. And of the 2019 movies that I have seen, most of them I've only watched once, so there's definitely a chance that my opinions and ranking of those films might eventually shift a bit on rewatch. The other thing to keep in mind is that these are my personal top movies of the year. There are a lot of qualities that could make a movie the best, but the movies on this list are included and ranked according to how much I enjoyed them. Remember, these are just my top movies, not the top movies, so be sure to post your own personal top 10 movies of 2019 in the comments below. I've already reviewed all 13 of the movies on this channel, so if you want to check those out for some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, I'll put links in the description below, and I'll also link some of them up in the cards as we go along. Alright, let's get this top list started. Kicking things off, I want to briefly talk about 3 honorable mentions that didn't quite make the top 10. There were a lot of films vying for these 3 spots, but I was finally able to settle on these picks. The first honorable mention is The Lion King. Now, I know this is a controversial pick, and that it might have been a dumb choice to mention this one first, because I'm sure a lot of people are instantly clicking away already. But I gotta say, I enjoyed this one a lot more than the average person did. The original Lion King is the most important movie to me. It defined my childhood, and it's still my favorite animated movie. And so this remake was enjoyable, because I got the story and themes that I already love in an amazingly photorealistic package. And you know what? Even though this movie exists, that original animated film is still sitting on my shelf for me to watch anytime that I want. The second honorable mention is Knives Out. This was such a great throwback to classic whodunit murder mysteries, but it was able to bring a lot of humor and other modern filmmaking sensibilities into the mix as well. What could have felt like a straight-up Agatha Christie ripoff ended up being a well-crafted, twisty mystery that approaches and delivers its story in a very unexpected and unique way. My third honorable mention, and the film that just missed the cut, is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. It's not often that an action franchise can maintain both its momentum and its quality 3 films in, but John Wick certainly does. This movie picks up right where Chapter 2 left off, but expands the story far wider than I anticipated, and it somehow further ramps up the action to a franchise high. Coming in at number 10, It Chapter 2. With a name like Mainely Movies, it's probably not a huge surprise that a Stephen King movie made the cut, but I actually really enjoyed this movie. When It Chapter 1 came out in 2017, I was completely surprised and happy that we actually had a really good adaptation of a Stephen King novel. That one was one of my favorites of the year, and one of my favorite horror movies in recent years, so I was very much looking forward to Chapter 2. That kind of anticipation can be a little bit dangerous in the disappointment department, but even though I still prefer Chapter 1, I thought Chapter 2 was great. It was a fitting continuation of the story with some nice nods to the novel, and the casting of the adult losers was spot on. Coming in at number 9, Jojo Rabbit. When this movie was first announced, I was definitely more than a little skeptical. I wasn't sure exactly how a comedy about a kid whose imaginary friend was Hitler would actually work. It sounds like a terrible idea on paper, but somehow Taika Waititi pulled it off. He takes a concept that could have been horribly offensive and crafts a satire that's not only funny, but also incredibly sweet and heartwarming. Like any good satire, it doesn't just pick fun at something, which this does quite effectively, but it's also got some important themes and messages. I know most people are going to be praising Taika Waititi's performance here, but for me, Roman Griffin Davis, who plays Jojo, is the clear standout, and I can't wait to see what he does next. Coming in at number 8, Joker. This was probably my most anticipated movie of last year, and it definitely didn't disappoint. Joker's a comic book movie unlike any other, and I think a large part of what distinguishes it from others is that you could remove the comic book references to Gotham and Batman and the Joker and still have a very strong story. It definitely wears its 70s and 80s Scorsese influences on its sleeve, but it's fitting for the dark, downbeat story, and also feels very much of the time period it's supposed to be set during. Story, cinematography, and production design are all great things, but this movie would not have been what it was if it wasn't for Joaquin Phoenix. His performance was phenomenal. He makes you both fearful for him, but also fearful of him, which contributes to making Arthur Fleck probably the most compelling character of the year for me. Coming in at number 7, Ready or Not. This might be a bit of a surprising pick, and I gotta be honest, I was a little surprised myself by how high up the list this one was. But when I was looking over the list of movies I saw last year and kind of second guessing myself on this one, I remembered just how good of a time I had with this movie, and so I feel pretty confident with its position here. The premise is incredibly simple, but that simplicity works in its favor, allowing it to deliver in multiple genres. It's a very funny dark comedy, a tense and suspenseful thriller, and a surprisingly brutal slasher film, all wrapped up in one movie. And none of those subgenre elements ever overpower the others, so the movie remains very well balanced throughout. Plus, unlike a lot of horror films, we've got a really good and believable main character who we actually care about and root for throughout the film, thanks to Samara Weaving's dynamic performance. Coming in at number 6, The Peanut Butter Falcon. Of all of the films I saw last year, this was definitely the biggest surprise for me. I actually had a chance to attend an early screening of this movie, and I went into it completely blind. I hadn't seen the trailer, and the only things I knew about it were the name and that Shia LaBeouf was in it. I didn't know if it was a comedy or a drama or a horror movie, nothing. I had zero expectations, but also zero anticipation. And so as this film unfolded, I was amazed. This was such a positive and sweet and heartwarming story, but it was never overly saccharine to the point where you'd tune out. It's sort of a modern Huck Finn type adventure story, and despite all the things that happen, it still feels believable and like this could have actually happened. Coming in at number 5, Dark Waters. If the last movie was surprising because of a complete lack of anticipation, Dark Waters was surprising in the fact that it lived up to and exceeded my expectations. I really like whistleblower stories, and so I was pretty convinced by the trailer that I was going to enjoy this movie. I'm usually fairly correct in judging where I'm gonna fall with a particular movie, but sometimes trailers can be misleading, so I'm always a little hesitant when I'm really excited for a movie. So even though the story and content sounded really interesting, I honestly expected this to be a pretty generic drama. But this movie was completely captivating to me. I loved how it didn't shy away from the investigatory and more technical aspects of the case. And the performances are great too, especially from Mark Ruffalo. And this is just a really important story. It's definitely a movie that everybody should see. Coming in at number 4, Toy Story 4. This one really shouldn't be a surprise for anybody who knows me or my reviews. The Toy Story franchise as a whole is incredibly important to me. I grew up with these movies and this franchise. I grew up with Andy. We've basically been the same age or close to it with the release of each installment. So Woody and Buzz and the rest of the gang have always felt like they were my toys too. And when Toy Story 3 was released, it felt like the perfect end to this saga about growing up. And then Toy Story 4 was announced. I had really mixed feelings initially, because I love this franchise and these characters, so getting more of them is awesome. But at the same time, it felt unnecessary, because I thought the third movie wrapped things up so perfectly. Well, obviously, I should know by now not to doubt Pixar, because this was a great movie. The animation is incredible and stunningly photorealistic at points, and the story expands upon aspects of these characters that I didn't know I needed to see. I still don't think Toy Story 4 was entirely necessary, but I'm definitely glad that we have it. Coming in at number 3, 1917. So you can thank this movie for the delay in getting this top movies of 2019 list out. I had to wait until mid-January before this one came out anywhere near me, but I'm glad I held off because this is an incredible movie that absolutely deserves a spot on this list. I had such a hard time placing this one, and honestly, like I said in the intro, this could easily be the first or second movie for me too. These top few movies are really in a dead heat for me, so their order is truly interchangeable. 1917 is such an experience, and it's one that I still can't stop thinking about. The cinematography is amazing, and I think the simulated single take filming and editing style works perfectly with the story it's being used to tell. George Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman both do a great job in their roles, and even though the story's really simple, it's incredibly effective because it's so tense and anxiety inducing. And the technical aspects, everything from the cinematography to the amazing score, only help to enhance that. Coming in at number 2, Us. I absolutely loved this movie. It was one of the few films this year that I actually saw twice in theaters, and despite its March release, this one maintained its high position on this list right through to the end of the year. There are just so many things about this movie that I really enjoyed. I think the story was incredibly interesting, both on the surface as this doppelganger horror thriller, but also on a deeper level with its metaphors and social themes. Jordan Peele's previous movie, Get Out, was another socially conscious horror movie, and another one that I really loved. So I knew that this was going to have elements of that, but honestly, I was impressed by just how distinct this movie is from Get Out. The duality in this film is incredible, and it's the kind of movie that you just can't get out of your head. Everything from the story to the themes to the imagery to the score, and then the performances, especially Lupita Nyong'o in her dual role, just a fantastic movie. So that means my number 1 movie of 2019 is Parasite. I had been hearing positive things about this movie for 6 months before I ever got to see it. And that absurd amount of hype had me really nervous about this movie because I had built it up so much in my head despite trying to temper my expectations. But even with all the hype and my incredibly high expectations, Parasite still blew me away. It was such a unique and unexpected story, starting as one thing and evolving into something entirely different by the end. And what could have been a very jarring genre shift felt very smooth and wasn't really noticeable until the movie was over. It had some surprising elements of very dark comedy, but also an extremely well crafted story that was stylistically reminiscent of both Alfred Hitchcock and Agatha Christie. As much as I think a few other films are equally deserving of this number one spot of 2019, I'm happy to put Parasite there because it was one of the most meticulously crafted and intelligent movies I've seen in a really long time. Alright, so there you have it. Those were my top movies of 2019. Like I said before, this was a really good movie year, so I had an incredibly hard time not only narrowing down my top movies, but then trying to rank them. I've already reviewed all 13 of these movies, so be sure to check those out if you want some more in-depth discussion of each, as well as my ratings, pros and cons, and even tailored film recommendations. And if you're interested in buying any of these movies, I do have affiliate links to all of them in the description below. I do get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these 2019 movies. I'd love to hear what your top 10 movies of 2019 were, so be sure to let me know in the comments below. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this top list, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button, and if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this, as well as movie reviews. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.